Welcome all. You may be wondering about the odd title of Crane 3S versus a Smooth 4, but there is a bit of logic to what I'm about to talk about. Now, one of my intents of doing video is when we go bush, I want to be able to sort of record what we do, where we drive and things like that. And no matter how fit I think I am or I might be, hauling something like this up and down bush tracks, whether I'm running, walking or crawling, is going to really tax me and I suspect anyone very, very quickly. 8 odd kilograms is not exactly a lightweight to hold. You can hold it to one hand for a few minutes or seconds, but when you're going up and down hundreds of meters on bush tracks, it does get very, very tiresome very, very quickly, even with a much lighter piece of kit. Now, I did make one of my A2000 Fayutech gimbals into a mobile phone gimbal, but it was a bit of a kludge. It worked, but it wasn't ideal, and even though I was going to use it, I wasn't always happy with the way it worked. And purely by happenstance, I came across a video on YouTube depicting the Zhiyun or Smooth 4, and the fact that it was compatible with Filmic Pro, which I use on my mobile phone. And so after I watched that video and did a bit more research, I was pretty much sold and thought that's going to be exactly what I need. And the reason behind that is that the Smooth 4 is designed to work with the Filmic Pro software so that you can control all the different parameters from the handle itself, especially start and stop recording. Rather than having to reach out to the phone, it's straight out of the handle. You can manually focus, zoom, do a whole bunch of things, which is really great. And the gimbal itself is extremely light. It's 830 grams total versus 8.3 kilograms for this particular combination. So 10 times lighter, a hell of a lot easier to move up and down bush tracks and wherever. And the big thing is that with Filmic Pro, I can shoot at 2.4 to 1 ratio, the same as I do with the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, shooting in log and 24 frames per second. So I can fairly well match up the video between the two. Not ideally. You can certainly always pick out what's a mobile phone image, but it's not too bad, and it blends in quite well when I want to do the videos taken from one and the other on those particular trips. So this actually works extremely well. It's very lightweight. It doesn't have all the movements and the controls that a traditional gimbal has. You can't sort of pan and roll and all that sort of stuff. It has limited movements before it sort of reaches its endpoints. So it's otherwise quite good, but it's not like a traditional gimbal where you can control those movements. It's not intended to be, but it does work well because you have some controls where you can actually make it follow what you're doing, and it's got the traditional bring it back to normal and all that sort of stuff in there. So that part of it is quite good. So it's a very, very functional gimbal for mobile phone use. It's bigger than the standard ones, and basically I think that's more to do with the fact that the controls that are available had to be a bit bigger, and maybe the batteries internally are a little bit larger than a normal gimbal. I don't know exactly the actual hours that you can get for it, but I've heard reports between 9 and 12 hours, so that's not too bad. Probably more than you can get from the mobile phone before you need to recharge that. Definitely, I think that's the case. But it really does work quite well, and moving around and taking some videos, I think it's going to be a very, very good little handheld thing for the trips that I want to do, and running about in the bush without killing myself, carrying something a lot heavier. Now, is it perfect? No. I'll just turn it off for the moment and show you what I had to do to make the gimbal a little bit more ideal. The problem with the gimbal was there was a balancing in the first instance. It basically went into that position because of the offset of the camera on the holder, and the weight of the phone on the holder, and the weight being offset to one side, and also the weight going down that way. Now, you've probably seen anybody who uses mobile phone gimbals, maybe using counterweights and things like that that you can buy and attach to the roll arm. I had a look at those. They're pretty janky looking things. I just wasn't happy about buying one of those things for $20 or $30 and then just screwing stuff onto the roll arm. So what I did was I went into my shed. I actually found a washer that was just the right weight to balance the phone, so that it, no matter what angle I put it at, it sits there. So that means that the motor is now not straining when it's trying to use the camera. Now, before I did that and I put the phone on there, it came and balanced itself quite well. It was operating fine. There was no issues about vibration or anything like that. But over time, it's going to exert the motors, and I thought it'd be better off to actually try to balance it properly and give a greater lifespan for the motor. The problem is that the roll arm here doesn't have enough movement to bring it out so that I could have balanced it just on its own, so a counterweight was necessary. Now, the other thing was the phone positioning itself. It sat at an angle roughly like that, and so I ended up doing exactly the same thing. I could have added some weight to the bottom of the phone holder, but that would have sort of been adding still weight to the motor, because that's not ideal if it's just sort of being balanced that way. So what I found was another piece of metal that fit the little dial at the back, or the locking mechanism that allows you to move the phone in different positions, and attach that. So now it sits basically pretty well correctly. In fact, what I need to do is, you can move the phone. There we go. The holder itself has got a movement which goes backwards and forwards, and it sort of sits on right, and then when you do it that way, it sits that way as well. Now, both of those were just attached there with some 3M double-sided adhesive, so it'll hold on fairly well. Now, design-wise, I'm really surprised that Zhiyun didn't actually mould into the alloy when they were doing this, cast a quarter 20 thread top, front and bottom, so you could actually add a little few weights on there and do the adjustment. It would have been so much easier if you had all that there, plus the little locking mechanism at the back. If that had a quarter 20 thread in there, you could have put some weights in there that way, and you would have been perfect, and you would have had a really easy to balance gimbal. Really, that's the only issue that I've got with the gimbal as far as design goes. It otherwise is really good, and the Filmic Pro app works very well with it, but it does have one issue, that if you go from the forward facing camera to the rear facing camera and then back again, what happens is it resets your resolution and format and everything else, and you end up with 1080p 30. For some reason it's a default with this camera, I suppose, or the phone, and so you have to reset it to make sure that you're getting what you're actually wanting to shoot. And the other issue that I just found while doing this video is that the phone, as it picks up either the Crane 3S gimbal or this Smooth 4, you've got to select the right gimbal, because it doesn't know which one to pick. So the actual operation wasn't working with the phone at that time, because it was looking for a selection, and it took me a couple of minutes before I realised what was going on. So this little gimbal is perfect for roaming around the bush, up and down tracks and things like that, where you want to drop a bit of weight. This one is ideal for more the heavy duty use, where you're not going to be running around up and down tracks, but you want steady and good video, depending on circumstances like events and so forth. So there's a purpose for everything, and I just wanted to sort of highlight the two differences that I have. And the reason that I am using this Filmic Pro, as I said, is it gives me exactly the same aspect ratio as the Pocket 4K in 4K. So the differences are sort of marginal. It'd be great if the Filmic Pro could use B-RAW and so on, but obviously that's impossible. But otherwise, it's a very good combination. So I just thought I'd bring that up and give people some ideas of how they can approach different subjects and tasks with the tools that are available today. So on that note, I'll say cheers.